The Dead Space Remake is here. This video is going to be a lot shorter than my previous ones. I want to try a format with more free writing, less structure. I'm going to try to keep it to 5 minutes or 1,000 words. There'll be no real order or plan, just a video about some of my thoughts as they came to me. Spoilers ahead. Full disclosure, I only played the original Dead Space once a long time ago. I know, can you believe it? That's not a knock against it. I like it very much. Life got in the way, or something, I don't know. I love the second entry as well, though I've never played the third. I was vaguely aware of the upcoming remake for the last few months. As the hype grew, so did my own. I remembered Dead Space to be a great blend of fun-to-play action and brooding survival horror, so I was pretty excited to boot up the remake this weekend as soon as it dropped. And it's wonderful. I'm particularly glad I never played the original again, weird as that may sound. I had a pretty decent familiarity with the lore, story, plot, and characters, or absence of them, and enjoyed living through the story all over again with a refined approach. That's what happens when a world is memorable. It comes right back to you. I wasn't so beholden to an expectation, so I went in with an open mind. From what I remember, this game is pretty faithful to its predecessor. It does 3 things well, and those are the same 3 things I mentioned a remake needs to do in my Resident Evil 3 video. Remain faithful to all the things that work about the original, drop what doesn't, enhance what does, and add surprises. One thing I particularly loved about the original game and am overwhelmingly fond of yet again are the weapon options. Each weapon is unique and enjoyable to use while also providing variation through their secondary functions, which are especially valuable in a jam. Never did I feel frustration that I'd have to use a weapon I wasn't fond of because I'd ran out of ammo for my favorite one. As in the original, you'll be uncovering much of the story through investigation. I like the text files, but I find the audio logs to be my preferred method of exposition within the Dead Space format. The text files often feel bloated and less personal, even if they do reveal important information. Audio logs don't interrupt the player's movement and often add to the atmosphere when they're particularly creepy. Dead Space's remake is also as violent as ever. Each nausea-inducing scene pushes the envelope of what art can get away with before it becomes unbearable. There's certain things I won't even show in this video. I find Dead Space often delicately toes the line without ever stepping over it, and that's difficult. Though I don't tend to equate upgrading your character's attributes so heavily with survival horror and more with power fantasies and RPGs, it's fun here yet again. I looked forward to finding benches and searching for schematics, as well as discovering resources that would allow Isaac to grow stronger. You'll be stomping through corridors just to make sure you've uncovered every credit. Everything about the remake's polish is satisfying, from the way weapons feel in your hands to the sound mix present when slicing limbs and trudging through the Ishimura. Speaking of which, the Ishimura feels improved, thought out, and intriguing to explore. As the story progressed, I began to gain a familiarity that made the geography more interesting than it already had been. And with surprises at every turn, backtracking is exciting and tension-filled. Side missions were welcome and rewarding. The plot and structure are relatively the same save for some added story depth that develops the lore a bit and even helps to inform the series. Dead Space is rife with deep and contemplative themes and subjects that elevate it from more than just sci-fi horror to something far more menacing. Perhaps the biggest change here is Isaac's character, and as someone who loves story, I'd say it's a welcome one. Dead Space is ultimately a tragedy, but unlike the pull of the marker, you'll never want to look away from it. One thing I found frustrating was this tentacle portion. I'd been locked into the interactive cinematic with low ammunition, and I kept finding it difficult to get the weapon I wanted in time, but that might just have been my mistake. I think I died like 10 times here. I've heard murmurs about a secret ending, but I haven't gotten to a second replay yet. If the Resident Evil remake is the gold standard of survival horror, then Dead Space's remake feels comparable in its approach. I know some people don't like the idea of remakes, and that's understandable. I wouldn't want to see a remake of a film like Jaws or The Godfather, but for those who do, this is where it's at. For developers looking to remake or revisit their classics, take notes. So, should you play it? Absolutely, especially if you're a survival horror or Dead Space fan. I'd recommend doing so on a PC if yours can handle it. I played with the graphical settings generally maxed out, and it has to have been some of the most impressive, dynamic lighting I've seen in a video game yet. The environments are immersive, intimidating, and gross. I managed to finish it over the weekend, not because it's short, but because I was hooked. Just like the Necromorphs, Dead Space has had some new life injected into it. This title is anything but dead. If you like this video, feel free to subscribe to the channel, give it a thumbs up, or comment. Share it with your friends or survival horror fans. I'll be back with more soon. Be nice to each other in the comments. Thanks for watching.